Recording. Am I recording? Okay, I believe I'm recording. I don't know how to get to me up. Okay, this is today is the September 22nd. This is the normal meeting of the face-to-face class for ITSE 2309 at Collin College, and today we're finishing up Module 5, and we will probably begin Module 6 at some point today. Module 5 deals with the select from where statement from single tables. It's fairly simple. I regret that last time I ran out of battery on my monitor and went mute for about half the class. But we have a person that's monitoring that on a headset now, so we should be okay. I left you last time talking about one that kind of caught me by surprise, and I wasn't quite sure of what this did. Select statement with a top clause and with ties. I don't really need this. I can do it otherwise. I said that I would research it and get back to you. So when you have a select top with ties, I set up a test case, and let me bring that up. I created a little table. The table's name is foo, as in good computer science. It has two fields, phi and phi, char and an integer, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And notice that they go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And notice I have two sixes, so I have two ties for 6. Okay. Now, what it's going to do, I'm going to say select, give me the top 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I say just the top 5, I will get 5 values. Okay. So they will be A, B, C, D, and E. If I say select the top 5 with ties, order by the number, and I say with ties, I'm going to get 5 distinct values in that. But 5 distinct values, I guess I'll turn this guy around just a little bit there. 5 distinct values, but I will get all of both of the 6s. So I'll get 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 6. So I have 5 distinct values when I say with ties. So if I just say select the top 3, I get the top 3. If I say select the top 5, I'm going to get exactly the top 5. So if I execute this, let's see, it would help if I executed all of it. I managed to drop the table. And we need to insert. And we're selecting our top 5. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values. So I only see one of the 6s. Now, if I say select top 5 with ties, and I have to sort by the field that I want to get the ties. Okay. Notice that this one, when I said with ties, it gave me all of them, all of the phi field. I'm ordering by phi, and I'm saying show me the ties. So if I'd had, I'm going to get 5 distinct values in that, if I have 5 distinct values. And any extras come in there. So it's kind of the opposite of saying eliminating ties. This one is getting ties. There are other ways we can do this. We can do it with a sub-select, and so it's fair. That would be kind of the way I would think about it. In the next chapter, we'll find another way to do this. Okay? Yes, go ahead, please. Mm-hmm. Yes, it will. As if we say order by phi, we don't know how we're going to get them, those sixes that tie. We don't know what order they're going to come in because we haven't specified. If I said order by phi, comma, phi, then it would order them by the primary key also within the ties. So yes, it's just going to give you the first one it hits in the sort. But if I say with ties, if I have any extras in there, I'm going to get, so it's kind of like select distinct, but then take that distinct off and give me the ties. Like I say, a good exercise later would be to create this, do this in SQL without the with ties. With ties is a fairly new idea. I haven't seen that, and when I took SQL a few years ago, we didn't have this one. Okay. Other questions on that? I don't think it's a real important one. Okay, here's one that I do think is real important. And let me see. That. Next. Oh. Null values. Null values, we have a saying, I think I have covered this, but I believe I didn't get audio on this, so I'm going to go back over the really high points. Null values, nothing gives us lots of trouble. Nothing, null is nothing. And we don't like null values. When I'm designing a database, I try to avoid null values if at all possible, meaning that I try always to constrain my fields against null. And if I can, I choose something that is the null value. So it's something that represents a null. For example, if your phone number is 00000000000, that means you don't have a phone number. Okay? Now that would probably work, but I don't always have that luxury. If I have something like a unique invoice ID, I have to reserve one as invalid. And this gives us a problem because I'm not always able to do that. What could I use for a person's name, for example? If I tried, an invalid name, Mr. Invalid Name is going to show up. Could I use a tilde, maybe? Well, I don't know. But with a name, I'm probably okay. But there are those fields that any value could be in there. A password, for example. I don't have a null value for it, except maybe no password at all. So null gives us trouble. Now null, we have the check constraint, constraint field, check field name is not null. Some questions have come up about what about the Go back to SQL. When I define a table, the questions have come up. Take a look at line 8 that I just highlighted there. Fee, char, one character. And then right up beside it, I put primary key. What did I do there? I'm getting lazy, is what I did. It's okay to get lazy if I'm just trying to create a table. I put a primary key in it. In reality, I didn't even have to put a primary key on something like this, but I just put it there. That demonstrates that I can. That's called an inline constraint. Okay, it is always better to name your constraints. So remember how I taught you to do it that I didn't do. I said constraint, foo pk, for example, give it a name. The name must be unique in the database. So everywhere in SW Smith underscore DB, I can't have another constraint named that in any table. So they're not unique to the table, they're unique to the database. The nice thing about most of the constraints when you name them, by knowing the names, I can go in and turn them off and turn them on. So I can just say, disable it for now, and then go back and re-enable it. You can't do that with a primary key, though. Some people have written it, and I believe the textbook does this, and it can be done. You can put a not null out there right beside it. That is an inline constraint. I didn't give it a name. I just let the system give it a name. System gave it a name. And if I violate that constraint, I will see their cryptic name of the constraint that I violated. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. By default, it takes nulls. It accepts nulls. I tend to give everything I can a not null constraint. And if I have a special value, for example, that's an integer, maybe I don't have any values of 0 in there. So if I gave it a 0, that could be interpreted as null. Okay? So I have a way. I didn't specify here, but I can give it the word default. So let me go ahead and do that. Default, note it's a reserved word. Default 0. That means if I make an insertion and I don't give it a value, it gets a 0. So in this case, my null value will be a 0. So if I just say insert a Z into the database, I don't give it a second field, the second field is going to be 0. Can't be null, but it'll automatically give it 0. And that's what I prefer to do. Okay, trick with nulls. Nulls are nothing. I don't know whether you can read this or not, but this is page, I don't know, the title is SFW Query and Nulls. It's one of the pages in the module. The constraint field is best. So the named constraint, give it a name, check, open parentheses are required. Field name is not null. You cannot say equal to, not equal to, or anything like that with nulls. That's an important point. Let me bring up this one. Okay. First of all, select vendor name from vendors where vendor phone is null. Okay. If I ran this query, it would return 25 rows such that all 25 had null, did not have a vendor phone. Question. Opposite of that is not null. Okay. Vendor name, vendor phone is not null. So this will give me, I believe, 97 rows. Seems like I ran it once. And I don't know what this output is down here. Question, please. Thank you. Good question. If I default it, for example, to 0, and I'm using an integer value of 0 as my definition of null, then you would, that's the nice thing about it, now you may use greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, anything you want with it. So all you're looking for is equal to 0. But null, because 0 is something. So I've taken my nothing and made it be something, if that makes any sense. Yes, yes, you can. Yes. For example, this one right here, the one that beginning on line 7 up on the screen now, is an example of I want to find all of the vendors where the vendor phone is not null. It's the opposite of the other one. Okay. Next one works. Let's the one I've highlighted here works. Select vendor name from vendors where not vendor phone is null. It works, but I don't like it. Reason I don't like it is because in many programming languages, that not will do strange things to you. Not has the highest level of precedence over and or. And therefore, if you're going to do that, it's fine, but I would strongly suggest using parentheses. Oh, I'm not sure. Okay. Questions? The where not vendor phone is null or vendor phone is not null are identical. But I would use the parentheses because sometimes it will apply that not in ways that you don't expect it to. Other questions? None of these will return any records. I've put all 6 ways I can say equal to, not equal to, greater than, equal to, null. None of them will return any records. It's false all the time. Anytime you say equal, not equal to, greater than, less than, false. So if you say, show me all of the people who have, whose birthday, who are 21 years of age, I'm going to get some of you. Show me everyone who is less than 21 years of age, I will get others. But if you don't have an age in there, I will not get you in either one of them. When you sort, so I say select vendor phone. Now I know that I have 25 null values in that field, in that table. If I say order by vendor phone, notice that by default, I am sorting in ascending order. If I don't say anything, it's okay to take that default. Usually I make you explicitly take the default. It's okay, it sorts ascending if you don't say. Notice the nulls come at the beginning. If I explicitly sort descending, I get the nulls at the end. So when you order by, it treats the nulls as the lowest value. They are not less than. I just, if I say show me all the vendor phones, show me all of them, and I don't have a where clause in there that filters out the nulls. They have to appear someplace. So just to be consistent, they put them at the beginning. So if you sorted ascending and took the top few, you would get the nulls. I don't know what would happen if you said with ties. I suspect that strange things might happen there. Null does not equal null. So I'm not sure what you'd get if you, that would be an interesting thing to try. Sort them ascending, say give me the top 5 with ties and see what happens. Okay. Questions on nulls? I'm going to move on a little bit faster here. Let's go back and look at these aliases one more time. There are some things that I maybe didn't cover. Notice that I'm going to alias one of the fields. I'm going to give it another name. Now, I can do this to any field. Sometimes this is done just to show that, to give it a more human readable name. You could put spaces in it if when you alias it, you put it in square brackets, it would be okay to put spaces there. I don't like you to put spaces in field names, but if you want to alias it in your query, that's fine, do as you please. This particular one won't work because I'm trying to use the alias that I did. I have it here on line 67. My alias is in the select clause, and I'm trying to use that alias in the where clause. I can't do that. Okay. The reason I can't do that is down there in 73 through 76, I'm showing how they are executed. The first line of an SQL query that is executed is the vendors. That would be line 74. Second one is the where. The third one is the select line. And the last one, 76, is the order by. So this one will work. I can use the alias on the order by line. The interesting thing, some platforms will hide the original name that was given in the query. So some platforms, Oracle, for example, will not let you use vendor phone if you give it an alias. Okay, this platform will. I tried it. Order by VP. VP is an alias for vendor phone. It would also say it would also let me order by vendor phone. Please go ahead. I'm going to step a little closer to you, sir. I don't believe it will. Didn't used to. Yes, because the alias does not happen until after the where has already executed. I don't know why I would want to use the original field name. For example, this one changes the name of vendor phone to VP. In this platform, apparently both of them are still visible. So you can use either one in the order by clause. And we're going to see there's some other places you can use. For example, we're going to have a group by in the next, and so that's also comes after. As long as it comes after the third step. The first step is the from, second step is where, third step is select what. If it comes after that step, then you can use it. I have another example here. Let's look at this example on line 79. Highlighted it up there on the screen. Select vendors, vendor name. Notice that in this one, I have put the table name dot field name. We don't have to do that yet, but we could. If we did, we would. Lots of times when you see SQL that is generated, it will have the field name in there. Access is famous for this. If you write a query in Access using the GUI and then go to your SQL view, you will see it looking like this. It'll also put in square brackets because Access lets you name fields with spaces. Yeah. So I put in vendors.vendor name. If I wanted to really get weird with it, I would put in DBO, database owner dot vendors. That's a little overkill, but I'm using the table name. Now, there's going to come a time later when we have to put the table name because we'll have an ambiguous reference. When we're taking stuff from multiple tables, if the field names are named the same, for example, a foreign key, primary key, as we will get many times, then I will have to use the field name, okay? So notice that I can use the field name. Okay, I can alias the table name. Line 87, and so on. Okay. So I've given, am I still got audio? Okay, well, I'm going to test the headphone now just to see. I don't know what. Testing the headphone. Test. Seems like I'm getting a lot of kind of an echo in there, doesn't it? Oh, if it's, I'll see if I can, I'll see what it sounds like on the actual recording. Okay. Okay. Well, maybe my mic's a little too hot. Notice that I say v.vendor name. Now, the interesting thing about this setup, when I alias a table, I cannot use the original table name. So, for example, I could not say vendors dot vendor phone. Okay. I have to use that alias of a table. One other thing, you will see people will write it like this. I'm going to change it a little bit. Programmers will drop that as out from vendors the. It also works the same way up on the select line. So the as isn't used a lot anymore because they always tend to default it. I don't want you to default it in this class or to skip that step. I want you to type AS when you're aliasing. So this would run just fine from vendors V, no comma in there. It's just vendors space V. You'll see it, and it works, yes. And when you start writing your own SQL code out in the industry, you write it as you please. In this class, we're going to write AS for alias. Okay? Other questions? Okay. I'm going to drop back to the PowerPoints quickly. Try to get through these more quickly than I was. Top. The PowerPoints are available to you. Comparison operators. Notice the not equal to in SQL, the not equal to is the diamond inequality officially. However, to the best of my knowledge, all implementations will also allow you to use the C++ style of inequality, which is the exclamation point equal. I believe that's pretty much universal. The preferred one is given here. It's the less than, greater than sign. That was the way we did it before C took over, and C has kind of bled over into our SQL. It's okay. Vendors located in Iowa. On one thing with not, when you're using not with and or, the not tends to always come first. Not has the highest level of precedence. Therefore, I always use parentheses every time I write NOT. I put parentheses around that thing to which I want it to apply, just to make sure that it works correctly. So let me see if I have one here. This particular one down here, the next to the last one, I'm pointing to it with the mouse now. That's one that the parentheses definitely matter on, the way they have that parentheses. I'd have to stop and look at that one pretty hard to figure out what it was doing. Let me keep going here. Compound, order of precedence. Notice that the not comes first. Okay, not is applied before the ands and the ors. So think of the not as a negative sign. Think of the and as a multiplication, and think of the or as addition. By the way, you have these slides available. I'm not sure what they're trying to show here. It's just a compound condition that they wrote without the parentheses. And let's see. There's one without the parentheses. Here they put the parentheses in. Notice that they have parentheses in this one that I have up there now. The parentheses are around the or condition. Notice those are two different statements. Okay, take a look at it. This last one is where if invoice date is greater than 1/1/2012, that will be in the output, or puts these other two together. So the invoice total greater than 500 and this condition will get put together first. This one has parentheses that change that. The next slide. So those two slides are not the same statement, not the same logical statement. They're going to return two different sets of data. Okay. It's a little bit like my example about the naval marksmanship badge, where you have to hit the ocean with 4 out of 5 rounds and attend class, or do the safety module. Okay. If you do the safety module, it's true. The or makes it true. Okay, in. We're going to see much more about this guy called in. It's very important. So where something is in, for example, an in phrase with a list of numeric literals, where terms ID in, then the parentheses are required. Pardon me. The parentheses are required. 1, comma 2, comma, or excuse me, 3, comma 4. So that's going to return any place where the term's ID is a 1 or a 3 or a 4. So it's a little bit like saying where term's ID is equal to 1, or term's ID is equal to 3, or term's ID is equal to 4. You could write it exactly that way. It would give you exactly the same output. What we're going to find is that that in can also be an SQL query, and we're going to get that very soon. For right now, in is parentheses, and you just give it a list of values. Okay. So, for example, we had one, find everybody whose last name, what is it, began with an A or an E or something like that. Okay. You could have done it using like, but this would also have worked where you take the left one character and say where that is in, single quote A, comma, single quote C, comma, single quote F. So if it were A, C, or F, it would return those guys. So you can use this for a lot of different things. Very powerful idea. Oh, look at the last one, please. That's where we're going. Using the last one with an in operator, I can get the top 5 with ties. I can use the in operator to do that. Where vendor ID in, now notice that in the parentheses, I have another query. You see that? Okay, that's called a subquery. Very important idea. Next chapter, though. Not in this chapter. This chapter is about one single select from where. Just bear in mind that this in statement is very powerful. We can say where it's not in also works. Okay. Questions on that? Students usually don't have any trouble with that until we start using other queries in there. I can show you how I can make it work, make that, give me the top 5 with ties. I can use this idea of a subquery and get the same thing. Okay, get through these more quickly. I want to be done with these by. Okay, I talked about between. Where invoice date between 2012, what is that? May 1st, 2012 and May 31st, 2012. And the question that I have on that is, will I include May 1st and do I include May 31st? Are they between? Well, I am sure in SQL. When you say between in SQL, you mean to include the endpoints. I seldom use between because of that argument that people will tend to have. Now, in SQL, that argument is settled. Between 3 and 7 includes 3 and 7. Okay, it's not 4, 5, and 6. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all between 3 and 7. So from, through. Now, in computer science in general, the idea of from and betweenness, well, sometimes people will say it includes the starting point, but not the ending point. Many times, many languages, if you say from here to here, you mean including the start, but not the end. But that's not so in SQL. SQL means betweenness includes the endpoints, and you can take that to the bank. So that's the way it works. What I will typically do is I will say where invoice date is greater than or equal to May 5th, 2017, say, and invoice date is less than or equal to the upper bound. Now I know not only do I know, I can change it any way I like it. So if I want to include one and not the other, I just change my greater than or equal to a straight greater than, or less than or equal to a straight less than. I can include them or exclude them as I feel like it. If it says to find something between, you may do it either way. But just remember that when you talk about betweenness, you are including the endpoints. Questions on that? Okay, this warning on this slide is valid. All dates include a time. Okay, if you do not give it a date, it defaults to 12 a.m. Midnight. Now, midnight is by definition a.m. So at 12 midnight, that's time is 0 seconds, and then 12 noon is considered p.m. If you do not give it a time, the default is 12 midnight on that date. Let's see. But if you just test a date, so if you are putting in a date into your database, and you're using the get date function, so get date, it talked about that. I can get a timestamp. So if I insert the system date and time into as I create a record, and I say, okay, I want to put today's date in there, it will put the time in there also. So it will timestamp it with the exact time to the second. So what's today, the 19th? 22nd, okay. Oh, I'm way off. If I put a date in today, and then I go back and I say, show me all of the records where the creation date is equal to September 22nd, 2017, that's going to default to 12 midnight. Equal to is going to include the time. Just be aware of that. There's ways around it. There's ways of saying, anything within the day is good. We're going to come to that later. Right now, it's just a warning. Okay, like. Anybody have any, some of you have done the exercise from Module 5, I know. Okay, I've seen it. Anybody have any problem? Did you use the like? There was one of them there that asked for, I believe it asked for a first letter of the last name, something like that. You could have used a like there, would have worked. You could have also used the in operator to have gotten that. You use the left one is in. Like comes from a field of computer science that is called regular expressions. And these tend to vary a little bit between them. Has anyone ever seen this kind of thing before, where we use these wildcard symbols to match patterns? Okay. You'll find them if you try to write an email filter, or I'm trying to filter out words. I'm trying to go through and look for words or phrases in email that would tell me it was spam. Okay. So if in the email heading is talking about growing hair on some portion of your anatomy or making it not grow, it's probably spam, right? If it has any of the various drugs that people sell by email a lot, just a scam, that's probably spam. And I can think of a lot of other words. Okay, so I'm looking for certain things. I'm looking for subjects that are written in all capital letters is a good knockoff. I usually filter that. Let's see some examples. Where vendor city is like SAN. Now look at the first example here, example 1, where vendor city like, single quote, SAN, percent sign. Percent sign says any phrase, anything, 0 or more characters. So it would return what? It would return San Diego, Santa Ana, or just SAN. It doesn't require there to be a character there. Now, notice that this particular one, is not case sensitive. What do you think about that? Any discussion? Notice that it's an all uppercase in the example, yet it returned lowercase values. So apparently the data are not being treated in a case-sensitive manner. I believe it could. Okay. I believe it would. The thing of it is that this is something that you can set on your database. It's one of your database settings, and I'll show you how to find that. That you say, are these data case sensitive? In other words, when you do a pattern match in the database, do we mean uppercase, lowercase matter, or don't they? Okay. Most of the time, I prefer to run with them with that on, meaning that I like my data to be case sensitive. So if you're looking for SAN, capital SAN, I expect only to find capital SAN. I'll show you where that control is. For right now, the default is, if you just set it up and just use it, the default is that it is not case sensitive. But I can change it. Let's see, the underscore matches any one, any single letter. And I don't know how you get it if it had an underscore in it. Any single letter is matched by the underscore. This is different many places. Does anyone know what the wildcard typically is to match any single letter? Question mark. You find that used frequently. So this is not necessarily the same as it is in lots of other places. So this one, COMPUTER, would return CompuServe, Computer World. It would not return COMPUER. So that means exactly one character has to go there. Questions? Percent sign says any number of characters. And then finally, the square brackets let you specify a range of characters. So DAMI, either an E or an O, followed by an N, would return Damien, E-N, or Damian. Questions? That's handy. I don't use it a whole lot. Some people say it violates the idea of a field containing only one value. In other words, I'm looking inside the field, and I'm saying, go in there and find me some part of that field based on it. So I only want the first 6 letters of the field or something like that. Does that violate the idea that a field contains only one value? I hear the argument. Sometimes you just have to get over it. I'm going to move on, get through with this before break. I'm going to have to okay, take a look at this. Yeah, it's got to begin with the first one, example 4. What do we want? It has to begin with an N. It has to be followed by something A through J, some character, A through J. So and there's no wild card or anything on that. So NC, NJ, but not NV or NY. Handy. This one uses a, what is that? N. Okay, that kind of works as a not. I've never actually used this one, example 5. Take a look at that. And finally, not is just simply does it. So not like where the first letters are 1 through 9. Zip codes such that the first letter is not, the first digit in the zip code is not 1 through 9. Okay. I don't know why they just didn't start with 0, but let me finish this up. Where expression is not null, we've talked about that. Was zero, select from what's invoice total is equal to 0, is not equal to 0, nothing new there. Null values, is null, is not null. Order by, we've talked about, ordered by descending. You do not have to say ascending. If you want it ordered in descending order, you have to say descending. How many more slides do I have here? Default sequence for an ascending sort. Okay, nulls come first, special characters, then numbers, then letters. By the way, everything except nulls is sorted according to its collating sequence. It would be sorted exactly the same way if you wrote a sort in C or anything else. It's sorted by its ASCII code, as it would appear in the alphabet. Nothing new there. Order by that sorts by 3 columns. This one's interesting because of the order by vendor state first. Then after all the states are sorted in this case, ascending order, we will sort the cities in ascending order. And within the city, for people who live in the same state, the same city, then the names are sorted. Okay? Just like you would expect. Order by clause that uses an alias. Notice that this example that's up on the board now, on the screen, it has a derived field, a calculation, and that is given the name address, and then we use the order by on the address. And as I pointed out earlier, you can use an alias in the order by because it comes after the select. I think we're just about at the end of them. Order by. Okay, here's a slide order by that uses column positions. I do not like this. I'm going to say rip that page out of your textbook and tear it up. Why? Remember that from, what was that movie where the teacher said, rip that page out of your textbook? Dead Poets Society. Dead Poets. Rip it out, tear it up. Why? Why am I just jumping up and down and saying, ooh, this is terrible? There are no column positions. Well, that's not true. There are, when we get to the select statement, there are column positions. So order by 2, 1, okay. I'll never do that. I promise I won't put that on a test. By the way, which probably brings up, as you ask what are my tests? I ask you to write SQL. You're not going to find any true or false, multiple choice. You're going to be actually producing SQL. Right. Is that unlocked? Can you see that? It means it must be unlocked. Okay. I don't think the solutions are unlocked. Is that correct? You should not be able to get to the solutions. Okay, that's fine. That's the way I want it for right now. So I usually give it to you and give you a few points if you do the practice test. If you do the practice test, you'll do pretty well on the people who do the practice test and get full credit. And basically, I give you a few points. If you want to work together, whatever, if you just do it and understand it, you'll do well on the test. I just try to make it worth your while to do. I'm sorry, I'm getting beside column positions. I'll never ask you to do it that way. You can. So it's the column positions in the select line. So there's number 1, there's number 2. I'm pointing to them with the mouse now. Oh, well. Let's get through this. How many? Okay, this is next class. Order by, I'm not going into this. I do not like this idea, fetch the next 10 and the next 10. Fetch next, fetch first. I might talk about this a little bit more, but I think that this is just getting into something. We might back up and talk about this towards the end of things. Right now, I'm just going to stick with select from where. What have we done today? What have we done in chapter, what is this, chapter 5? Yeah, module 5, chapter 3. Yeah, we backed up chapter 3. Chapter 3, what have we done? We have done select from where. Okay, we've talked about order by. Added that into it. We've talked about aliasing the field names. We've talked about, you can do like. We've talked about that. We've talked about the in operator briefly. We're going to come back to it. So the big thing there is select from where. We've talked about the order that they happen in. The from line happens first. The where line happens second. Select line happens third. And everything else happens after that. We have order by is all we have right now. We're going to get some other stuff that can happen after that. Okay. If we're happy with that, I'm going to wrap up chapter 3 there, and I'm going to proceed to chapter 4 after our break. I'm going to stop the recording now.